So here's a question for you. At what point does a tree like this rather glorious, tropical looking Cordyline Australis become native to the UK? It is obviously not originally native to our country, but as it establishes and becomes a more popular tree, at what point could we consider it native? Let's think about that. Now, I don't want to be too controversial, but it is Christmas. So I've had a bit of time to think. Filming this on Boxing Day 2024 on our little kind of roundabout down the end of the road that we've been planting bulbs and things into. There's some daffodils actually coming up there. They won't be long before they come into flower. We have got some early flowering varieties. In fact, there's one just down the road from here that I'll put a picture up. It flowered on January the 1st last year, and it's about to flower now as well. But the reason for this video, and I'd be really interested in your thoughts on this, is how sustainable. Is it right or is it wrong for us to be having so many Cordyline palms? That's them. Okay, yes, I know it's not strictly a palm tree, but we call them palm trees here in the UK, even though strictly speaking it's a grass. I think it's in the asparagus family actually, but it probably would not be, well, it certainly is not regarded as being native to the UK, in as much as it originally was grown and was native to New Zealand and Australia, those sorts of areas. But they've become increasingly popular in the UK over the last 40 years, I would say. I remember when I first started working in the trade, they were a bit of a rarity, a bit of an unusual thing, but now they've become increasingly popular, so much so that I would hazard a guess, with my limited experience, that it's now probably at least one of the most popular garden trees in the UK. If I walk around our housing estate here, I see Cordylines growing all over the place, and it's started to become very common. And at what point, this is my main question, at what point does a tree like this become regarded as native to our country? There's a question for you. So if we think about some of our kind of common accepted native trees here in the UK, things like oak and beech and so on, who knows how long they've been native to the UK. If you went back many thousands of years, maybe they weren't so native, but seeds might have been carried over the channel from Europe by birds or even on the wind, I suppose, and some of them failed and some of them succeeded, and those that succeeded started to then multiply and coped with our climate here. And now, of course, with our ever-changing climate, trees like this, I can imagine in a few thousand years' time, will be everywhere in the UK and thriving. And at what point, where does the line get drawn that they are then considered native? This is quite pertinent to this little roundabout, because these three Cordylines here actually are seedlings that sprang up without any help from me. They just appeared in some compost, in some soil. I'm presuming from when birds dropped them, or they fell out of the trees. And if you look down here, look past those daffodil leaves there, you can see the white seeds down there. And I've seen the birds having a right old feast on these seeds over the last few weeks as temperatures got colder. And in fact, if you look up on the top there, you can see there's a flower cluster there that's been stripped of just about all of its berries, I assume by the birds, and now they're working their way down through this bunch here. So they are, as well as being comfortable and successful in our current UK climate, certainly in the southern half of the UK, I would argue that they're actually very sustainable in terms of their wildlife provision. So let's just think about it. So they're providing food through the seeds. They're amazing habitat. I know that when I've pruned back Cordylines, cut them back If you want to know how to do that, have a look at some of my previous videos available on my channel. When I cut back some of those kind of very leafy heads to kind of reduce the size of the top of the plant in the past in some other trees, I have found all number of insects living up there, as well as slugs and snails and even worms. I don't know how the worms got up from there up there, but I have found worms living in that kind of very enclosed environment up there amongst the foliage. So I would argue that they're wildlife friendly. I've found bird nests as well in trees that I've pruned back. So they are adapting to the climate. They are providing habitat and food for wildlife. The bees absolutely love those flowers in the spring, so they're good for pollinators as well. And now, I'm no expert on this, but my understanding is that those leaves absorb carbon dioxide, carbon from the atmosphere. It's an evergreen, so it holds on to that carbon for a while, but then, unlike some, say, coniferous evergreens, which don't drop their leaves for many, many years, Cordylines do. And I'm hoping, and correct me if you know more about this than me, that I'm hoping that the carbon that's been absorbed by the green leaves is eventually released back into the ground as those dead leaves rot down. So there's a good kind of carbon absorption going on here as well. And the other thing that comes to mind is that it doesn't get as big as some of our native trees. And I know there's a great push for more and more trees to be planted in our environment, in our gardens, to help absorb carbon dioxide and all the things that we've mentioned, but also to absorb soil water. The problem with some of those big native trees, thinking of things like beech and oak and so on, is that they get too big, and they can start to kind of undermine foundations and drains and all sorts of things. So in a garden environment, I would argue that trees perhaps like this, maybe not a small garden, but a medium-sized garden and upwards, given a fair distance away from the house. And by that, I would suggest, if we're going to have like a 4-meter tree, 4 meter high, let's have 4 meters at least distance from the tree to the house. And I personally, I've got 5 of them in my garden, and I have them all along the kind of the boundary, well away from the house, to make focal points. So what I'm saying is, if you or we are looking for trees that will be suitable for growing in kind of domestic areas rather than rural areas, to help absorb surface water and perform all these wonderful kind of environmentally friendly functions, I think trees like Cordylines have a great future for us. Anyway, I'll be really interested in hearing your thoughts. I've just spotted a spider's web up there. Can you see that? And in case you're wondering, yes, you can collect those seeds and sow them to produce new seedlings. Some may come up in the soil anyway, as indeed these guys did. If you wanted to have a go at growing your own little seedlings in some pots and things, midwinter like this is the time that I find in the UK is the best time to harvest the seeds. And you will find plenty of videos on how to raise cordyline seeds into seedlings and palm trees as strong as these on my channel. Feels like I'm advertising, doesn't it? Anyway, that's enough waffle from me. It's about time I went back for my Boxing Day lunch here, which I will enjoy. And I'll raise you all a glass of sparkling wine. Wish you all the best for 2025. And please let me know your thoughts on this subject. And if you're not sure of the answer yourself, but you know somebody who might have some information or opinion on this, please feel free to forward this video to them, and I'd love to hear some input from people who know more than me. Thanks very much. Thanks for watching. Bye.